After this disaster in Ador and Ribli, Black recognized that Rook c8 was probably a waste of time and picked up b5. So trying to create an immediate counterplay here. Now the trick is that now if White plays g4, then after knight b6, Black is not only solving all the problems but creates problems for White. Just look, g5, knight d7, and now castle is not working because after knight c4, if bishop takes on c4, then b takes c4, and look, White knight on b3 has only one square. It should go back on a1. So that's not what we want. So it is very important to remember that when Black has a setup b5, knight b6, you should try to find other options for your knight on b3. So obviously one is to put king on b1, and then the knight can go on c1, but as we can see, there are other plans for White. From b3, knight has other squares. But let's look at the chronological development of this line, because one of the attempts after b5 was an immediate confrontation on the queen side. So White believes that it's still solid in the center. It did not compromise its position on the king side, and it could try to use premature b5 to create weaknesses for Black on the queen side. Now a4, that's what played by Tchaikovsky in 1981. b4, knight d5, bishop takes f5, e d5, knight b6, then bishop takes b6, queen takes b6, and a5. So when it's an attempt to actually isolate pawn on b4, this pawn, and to use this weakness, ideally to win the pawn, but also to use the weaknesses of the Black's queen side. It seems that Black has some difficulty of creating serious counterplay because it still has to develop its pieces, and White didn't have obvious weaknesses. Another option also was used by Perenier, the Hungarian expert of this line, is the long castle. It looks a little bit odd just to play a4 and then to castle long, but at the same time there is some rationale, because pawn on a4 prevents Black's chance to disturb knight on b3 by playing a6, a5, a4, and it creates pretty solid position for White king there. So the best I think here is g6, and after g4, bishop g7. In Perenier horror, Black created quite a good counter chances. After a5, queen b7, also long castle was played. That was played by Sachs. Bukic played bishop a7, but I would prefer g6 or even now h5, modern h5. In both cases, I think the game is very complicated, and I was not very much disturbed by this White's option when I was playing b5 and knight b6. So bishop c4, and here is a critical position. So Black tried number of moves. Obviously bishop e7 was the most natural, but there was also a try to play rook c8, queen d3, and to take on c4. Queen takes c4, knight takes d5, but it didn't work out. Eventually White proved to be superior. Bishop e7 was a very natural move, rook a4, rook b8, but after knight c1, it seems that Black has problems with this pawn on b4. Bukic castled, knight a2, and played bishop d8. So knight d7 was another option, but here White should make a very cautious move, b3, just not immediately taking the pawn, because after rook b4, queen c7, this bishop is hanging as well as the pawn. So b3 is a prophylactics, and then the pawn is doomed anyhow, and white is having an advantage. So bishop d8 is another move, but here b3 again is keeping an advantage on the white side. So it is important to remember that after knight a2 there is a trick. Bishop takes a5, rook a5, queen c7, and black suddenly solves over the problem. So the Szyszkowski-Bukic, the games are here, so you will see that it was not enough for black to equalize. Also, Ponomaryov, after bishop d8, b3, castle, knight a2, e4, twice played this game with this position with Shirov, and also I think white was trying to get an advantage. Black created sufficient counter chances. So there were two interesting fights and two draws in Moscow at the end of 2006 and Vikhanze 2007. But I would recommend the 15g6. That's a move that I invented, preparing for a rapid game in 2000 in Frankfurt against Alexei Shirov. When he was confronted with g6 first time, he forced a draw by repeating the moves. But of course later white tried some more aggressive options, and Shirov even played this position with black, not with much success. He lost to Judith Polgar. Also there was nothing wrong with the opening itself, and the big fight was in our game in Linares in 2004, where there was already some practical experience on Shirov's side, and I kept working on it, inventing new ideas. And one of the ideas actually was shown in this game. It was followed the main line, knight c1, h5, white king is kept in the center, and of course bringing bishop on h6, controlling this diagonal, could be really dangerous, because in many lines black king goes on a7 and controls this diagonal as well. So look at this crossroads. So a7 g1, h6 c1, and having those two diagonals controlled by black bishop and black queen always creates potential problems for white. So Shirov played knight d3. The knight a2 line leads to a draw after queen takes b4, queen a7, and now rook takes b2, rook d4, and knight g4. And white should play rook b8, because after f takes g4, queen f4, it's not a perpetual, but is a mate. After rook b8 is a perpetual, white that gives a perpetual, it's a draw. Knight d3 is played hoping for knight takes d5, and then with equal material black initiative is run out of steam, and white has very comfortable, potentially very comfortable endgame. But of course bishop h6 is natural. Now after queen b4, queen c7, we'll not go into all details, but it's a very interesting, exciting position, and I think that black has nothing to worry. But there are many lines, so I leave it for you to analyze it and support my evaluation. So queen e2, that's what Shirov played, and that was already played before. Yeah, and after castle, knight takes b4, several times black played here e4, and after castle, e takes f3, queen takes f3, knight g4, knight c6, black sacrificed an exchange after queen takes b2, but I don't think that this sacrifice gives black sufficient counter chances. I played queen d7. That was my idea, and I expected b3, where I wanted to sacrifice the queen. Queen takes a4, b takes a4, rook takes b4. It looks that this sacrifice is not sufficient. Black just has rook and knight for queen and a pawn, but the positional construction is such that black has great compensation, because after bishop b3, simply plays rook a8, castle, and then knight d7. Then knight goes on c5, and white has very limited options, if any, to improve its position. Knight on c5 protects pawn on a6. Advance on the king side is stalled, and it's black that can actually try to create additional counter chances, and could play very comfortably and absolutely safe. So Shirov didn't want to play this position, and he sacrificed pawn on b2, and after castle, now his king is safe. He hopes to win pawn on a6, and again it seems that black makes no advance on the king side. Also, after bishop b3, rook on b2 will be trapped. But it's sort of dubious trap, because rook is limited in its movement, but it can suddenly create a lot of dangerous threats, because white should control its first rank. So I played h4. Pushing this pawn and adding one extra piece to my attacking columns. Bishop b3, h3, g3, and now this pawn I would count it as a piece, because pawn on h3 with so many pieces aboard in the proximity of the white king might be a very, very dangerous piece. Just imagine that if if black king suddenly shows up on g2 with no other white pieces protecting this square. So pawn on h3 also creates other chances for, say, bishop e3 check, and then the combination of bishop on e3 and pawn on h3 creates extra problems for white king. So e4, that's important to actually open the position. F takes e4, and now black could make a draw by knight g4, and after e5, bishop e3, knight f2 is a perpetual, because white cannot afford to play rook takes f2, bishop f2, rook a1. After d5, queen f2, suddenly this rook makes a very unpleasant move. It takes the bishop, and now black has already serious advantage. But I wanted to press my luck. I played queen g4, and after some interesting complications, the game still ended up in a draw. But in my view, although there are tons of other lines, black has always sufficient counter chances, and I always like to look for new ideas on that side. So in my view, the line with a4 and a5, the Szyszkowski's line, call it, where white is trying suddenly to shift the front from the king side to the queen side, can be always met by the ideas with g6, and black bishop either on g7 or h6 helps to create very good counter chances on the black squares. And now white is looking for other options. a4 is not an often seen at the top level, but other ideas to prevent this setup from succeeding, b5, knight b6, knight c4, are used by strong white players, by the adherents of bishop e3 line in Sicilian.